Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, youtube.com/TYTNation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to the show. It's going to be a good show today. Nice Thursday show. Week's almost over. We're over the hump. We got more shit to do, more stuff to talk about, really important stuff, so I'm going to bring that to you today. So, again, got a lot of good stories, but first, before I get into them, I want to thank the patrons for making the show possible. Thank you, patreon.com/TYTNation. You guys and gals are awesome for, continuing to help fund our efforts here to keep us on the air and, of course, corporate sponsored free. So, yeah, could you imagine if I had to go and try and do my own ads? Like, check out this new soap. It's great. No, it wouldn't work. It'd be awful. So don't make me have to do that. Patreon.com/TYTNation. So, thank you again to patrons. Thank you to everybody for joining me here in the live stream. Make sure to share and like this stream. Get more people involved. Get more people to watch, because that's always a good thing. So that helps me out tremendously as well. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's go through the rundown. Remember Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Yeah, she's back. Here we go again. I'm going to talk about her and her criticisms of what Bernie Sanders had said on a previous show. We've got that video. That's awesome. I'm gonna go after her. Then we've got new news on the Donald Trump Muslim ban 2.0. What happened and why? So very interesting developments on that. Ivanka Trump is now in the White House, officially in the White House. I'm going to break that down. We'll talk about that. Then some more information on the fact that Republicans have sold you out to telecom companies so that they can violate your privacy, so they can sell you ads. We have an interesting defense. Not from me. But there are some interesting groups that are defending this. And there's civil rights groups. Now, wait a minute. Why would civil rights groups defend the measure, a Republican measure, to strip privacy rights from your ISP? Very interesting. I've got that. I'm going to cover that. I'll break it down. You're not going to want to miss that story, of course. I'll give you all the details on that. And then, of course, finally, North Carolina. The bathroom bill might be repealed, but is it a good deal? Is it not a good deal? I'm going to have the details on that as well. So, a lot of stuff packed in today's show that we're going to talk about here. A lot of very important issues. So, there's that. If you want to tweet me, hashtag TYTNation on Twitter. If you want to get a hold of me as well for that. And who knows? If we have time, I might take a call or two. Just to get your guys' feedback on this, on any of the topics that we have. And the number is 796. What is it? I always forget. I forget my number. It's 989-796-4975. Terrible memory. I have a bad memory, so short term. Anyway, let's get to the show. Disaster. Sad. All right. Let's see. Do this and this. Okay. Let's start out with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the disgraced former chair of the DNC, was recently on MSNBC and was responding to Bernie Sanders' criticism of the Democratic Party. I want to first show you the criticism, what Bernie Sanders had said, and then I want to show her reaction to it. Let's take a look.
Clearly, the Democratic Party needs a top-down overhaul, and that top-down overhaul means that instead of becoming dependent and being dependent on big money interests for campaign contributions, it has got to become a grassroots party. It has got to start speaking and acting and fighting for working people, for young people. Perez has got to capitalize that, and that's the kind of party I think the Democrats have to create.
Okay, so Yeah. Look, you got to be more grassroots, right? You don't have to be beholden to the corporate interests. So there's Bernie Sanders. Now, of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is going to be on Greta Van Sustren's MSNBC show. I'm not used to saying that because Greta Van Sustren, we know her from Fox News, kind of a right-winger. What she's doing on MSNBC, I have no idea. But so anyway, she's going to be talking to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and she's going to ask her what she thought about Bernie Sanders' criticism of the Democrats no longer being a grassroots party. Let's take a look at that.
Well, respectfully to Senator Sanders, we are already a grassroots party. I mean, if we were not, we would not have been able to help bring down the absolutely abhorrent health care repeal bill that would have knocked 24 million people over 10 years off of their health care, that would have increased costs economically for people who were between 50 and 64 years old, increased prescription drug prices.
So he's wrong.
And so, no, it's actually more like semantics. We all agree that we should be and we are a grassroots party.
No, he's not wrong. It's just semantics, but because we are a grassroots party. Really, are you now? Now, this is a person, by the way, or says the person who helped Hillary Clinton outspend Donald Trump and the Republicans in this last election 2-1. They outspent Donald Trump and lost. Says the person who, when she was chair of the DNC, reversed the Obama-era rule that said that lobbyists cannot lobby the DNC. So, no, he cut out corporate money from the DNC. She reversed that decision as soon as they won the primaries. Like, all right, let's get that. Hey, big donors, big corporations, the Democratic National Committee, we're open for business. She's the one saying grassroots party. No. Hypocrisy be thy name. I mean, look, we all agree that we should be, and we are. By the way, we are a grassroots party. But we should be, but we are. Well, that's a weird way to phrase it, isn't it? I mean, look, but on the substance, of course, Debbie seems to have a little bit of a different view of what it means to be a grassroots party. Now, for example, Bernie Sanders, he ran a grassroots campaign. This was a real grassroots campaign. He didn't take any super PAC money, and a majority of his donations were from small donors. About 70% of the money Bernie Sanders brought in this campaign was from small donors, people like you, people giving $27 at a time. You cannot say the same for Hillary Clinton or the DNC. And as far as being grassroots, well, if you're taking all your money from corporations, you cannot be grassroots. How much? It's estimated that about 19% of Hillary Clinton's donors were small donors. 19%. Look, the rest were either millionaires, billionaires, or super PACs, PACs, billionaires, multinational corporations. Those are not human beings. Oh, I mean, yes, the billionaires are, of course, are. But the corporations and the PACs, they are not human beings. That does not, you're not a grassroots candidate when almost 80% of your money comes from billionaires, millionaires, super PACs, and corporations. That is not grassroots. Look, Bernie Sanders, again, 70% of his donations were small donors. And he outraised, in certain months, Hillary Clinton. That is unprecedented. He has shown us that you can fund a nearly successful campaign, or a very successful campaign, I should say, considering. I mean, look, he made up a 60-point lead on top of the most well-known, most well-financed candidate the Democrats have ever fielded. And he did it from you guys, small donors, $27 at a time. Unprecedented. See, he ran on the idea that, hey, maybe we should, instead of representing the corporations, we should represent the people. I'm not going to take any super PAC money. To be fair, for a while, Donald Trump said the same thing. He ran on that as well. Now, he was, of course, full of shit. As soon as the primary ended, Donald Trump started taking super PAC money. So, again, full of shit. But the whole point is, when it came to Hillary Clinton, for example, people didn't like it when you don't represent when you don't represent them, when you instead represent the donors. Now, ironically, that whole issue of trying to appeal to, hey, no, we're the little guy, we don't represent the banks. No, in fact, we're running against the banks. Good example of that is Dave Brott. And Dave Brott's a Republican, right-winger, very, very conservative. He ended up being Eric Cantor in a primary. Why? Because he ran against the banks. He was, again, full of shit. But at least Republicans have seemed to have figured out, like, oh, right, hey, if we run against the banks and multinational corporations, they can vote for us. Or they will vote for us. And then all we have to do is just turn around and work for the multinational corporations and the banks. Oh, it's a great idea. We actually appeal to them with, I don't know, populism. And appeal against the corporations that are crushing them. Who knew? Who knew that actually worked? Who knew people were kind of mad at business right now? The Democrats don't seem to understand that. See, by running against the big money interests, the special interests, by actually appealing to the grassroots, that's how Republicans have been able to win. It's amazing, I know. Are the Democrats out there doing this? No. No, what they've done is that they double down on corporations, and then instead of addressing their own failures, they have focused solely on blaming Russia for the loss of the election. That is not the right way to go. Look, you can talk about, hey, did Russia meddle in the election? Did they do propaganda? There seems to be a lot of proof that yes, they did. But at the same time, did that lose the election? Did they actually hack into our voting systems? No, there's no evidence of that. And besides, there's no evidence that anything the Russians did had a huge impact on the electorate. And what it was is that Hillary Clinton, terrible candidate, she didn't go to places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. She didn't campaign where it counts. She won more of the popular vote, but she didn't win in places where it actually mattered. In our electoral system, she did not get those electoral votes. But anyway, the whole point is what the Democrats have lost is the trust of the American people. And what they also lost is the right to call themselves grassroots when they did everything in their power to crush the grassroots. So no, I will disrespectfully disagree with Miss Wasserman Schultz. Now, one more thing. What she said, this was so disingenuous of her and the corporate Democrats to try to take credit for the epic failure of the Trump Care bill. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Democrats didn't destroy Trump Care. No, the grassroots, ironically, did destroy it. The real grassroots of the parties, Republican and Democratic voters who showed up at the town halls, yelled at their representatives, called their congressmen, wrote in, tweeted, all that stuff, made a ruckus, man. They went in there and they said, "Are you gonna dare to mess with my health care? No, you're not gonna mess with my health care. You mess with my health care, we're coming for you. And we're coming right to your town halls." There are videos of congressmen running from these town halls. So don't tell me it was the corporate Democrats that were that had caused the failure of Trump Care. No, it's mostly the grassroots, and also some of the, obviously, credit or blame, whichever you view it from, goes to the Freedom Caucus for being so super greedy that a $600 billion tax cut wasn't enough for them. But as far as most of the credit goes, I think it goes to the grassroots. They defeated this. The corporate Democrats did not. It's not like there was a vote. Corporate Democrats didn't really stage rallies to save healthcare. Do you know who actually did stage rallies? Bernie Sanders. And look, he brought along Nancy Pelosi. He brought along Chuck Schumer. Why? Because Bernie Sanders is too damn nice of a person sometimes. He's too nice for his own good. Which makes him a much better person than me. And we need more people like him. We need less people like me. And certainly less people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Here's my take on that. All right. So let's talk Muslim Man 2.0. Donald Trump might just not be able to keep another one of his campaign promises. The same federal judge in Hawaii, CNN reports, that temporarily blocked the president's travel ban has now extended that injunction indefinitely. And this has been reported by multiple sources. Now, the updated decision by U.S. District Court Judge Derek Watson now essentially means that the travel ban has been blocked indefinitely unless it has been reinstated by a higher appeals court judge, which certainly the Trump administration is going to go and try and do. Now, see, it turns out that there seems to be this little thing called the law and the Constitution that you have to follow even if you're president. I know, right? Oh man, who knew being president would be so hard? Now, the original order was, of course, blocked by a 3-judge panel because it was very clear that it was targeted towards members of a specific religion, in this case, Muslims, from 7 different majority Muslim nations. Now, the original order also included preferential treatment for Christian refugees that were fleeing these areas. However, no, hey, whoa, not a Muslim ban, not a Muslim ban. Donald Trump and his cohorts came out and they swore over and over and over and over, not a Muslim ban, not a Muslim ban. No, it's just we're just banning Muslims from these specific countries, just these specific countries. No, okay, well, yeah, nobody was buying that. At least a lot of people weren't buying that. So what they did is that after that got blocked, they came out with Muslim Ban 2.0. Now, the second one only affected 6 countries and got rid of this religious test. However, Judge Watson, he was not convinced that this bill still wasn't a Muslim ban, and because it was based on the same idea. Now, in his decision, Watson wrote, "The court will not crawl into a corner, pull the shutters closed, and pretend it has not seen what it has. The executive order runs afoul of the Establishment Clause, where openly available data support a common sense conclusion that a religious objective permeated the government's action." Now, what does that actually mean? A religious objective permeated the government's action. What religious objective? Well, basically what he's saying is that it's no secret that this was set up to be a ban on a specific religion, even if it's just from these 7 different countries. In fact, all the way back in 2018, and this is what Watson had based this on, is Donald Trump's own words of the intent behind this piece of legislation. In fact, I want to show you this. Let's take a look.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
Okay. Complete and total shutdown of Muslims coming into the United States. I don't know, that sounds pretty religious to me. It sounds like a religious ban. Now, maybe if you said, hey, there are people in these countries, there are these countries, right? I think that there's some danger right now in letting people come in until we can vet them better. We should set up some better vetting. Now, that statement itself, or some sort of, different take on that statement, still factually incorrect, as we do have some of the toughest vetting measures in the world. And since 1975, none of the countries that were actually on the ban had actually attacked America. But at least using that language, you'd be a little bit more safe because, oh, the intent is just to keep us safe, not to actually ban members of a certain religion. Okay, well, that makes sense, where you could see that even though you're factually wrong on this. Okay. But right now, as you saw from that, Donald Trump was blatantly saying, I have a problem with Muslims coming in. Well, that's your intent. Your intent is to block Muslims. Now, Trump is not sophisticated. We know this. He doesn't know how to hide that kind of language, the bigotry and Islamophobia like a regular Republican does. So what it is that it's out in the open. People can see it. Judge Watson sees it. And he's like, you can't just look at that and look at the stuff that he said and look at the order that's come out and say that that's not a Muslim ban. That's not based on religion. And it's funny is that, some people are out there saying, oh my God, Trump's so brave for coming out and saying that. He says it the way it is. No, it's not because he's saying it's the way it is. It's because he's not sophisticated. It's because he's a moron. He's an idiot. And what's funny is that during this whole thing, he's done a great job at unmasking all the other Islamophobes. The ones that were staying in the shadows, that were using this more sophisticated language to hide their true intent, which was to ban people of a certain religion. Now, speaking of unmasking, see, if that video was not clear enough, Here's a knucklehead Giuliani putting it right out in the open. Take a look.
But I want to ask you about this ban. I want to ask you about this ban and the protest. Does the ban have anything to do with religion? How did the president decide the 7 countries? I understand the permanent ban on the refugees.
Okay.
Okay, talk to me.
I'll tell you the whole history of it. So
All right.
when he first announced it, he said Muslim ban. He called me up. He said, put a commission together. Show me the right way to do it legally. I put a commission together with Judge Mukasey, with Congressman McCall, Pete King, whole group of other very expert lawyers on this. And what we did was we focused on, instead of religion, danger. The areas of the world that create danger for us, which is a factual basis, not a religious basis. Perfectly legal, perfectly sensible, and that's what the ban is based on.
So the ban was based, he says, oh, it's based on danger, it's based on danger. But you're targeting these specific countries that actually haven't had people since 1975 attacking anyone in the United States. If it were based on danger, then why not ban Saudi Arabia? Or ban Egypt? Instead, you're taking countries that haven't attacked us and banning them, which doesn't make any sense. So there's that. But on the substance of what he said, getting back to my point, I want to ban Muslims. Tell me how to do it legally. Well, you got to make it about the danger, Donald. You can't say, oh, I want to ban Muslims, even though it plays super, super well with your audience. You can't do that. So here's what we do instead. And look, the guy is still such an idiot that Giuliani comes out and says, well, that's what we wanted to do, but we had to change the language. We had to fudge it around. Now, again, that rewrite does change a couple of things around, but in the intent is the same. Ban people from a specific religion. In fact, here's Trump again talking about his intent, and this is much more recent. Let's take a look.
Remember this, I wasn't thrilled. But the lawyers all said, oh, let's tailor it. This is a watered-down version of the first one. This is a watered-down version. And let me tell you something. I think we ought to go back to the first one and go all the way, which is what I wanted to do in the first one.
Idiot. Child. Oh, my whole intent was to go back to the first one, but actually to go stronger, because that's what I wanted to do in the first place, is to ban more Muslims. But it's not a Muslim ban. Moron. Idiot. Baby. Sad. Look, if Donald Trump truly wants to move this ban forward, which he does, he's got to go to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and then up through the court system, which, again, the Ninth Circuit is the is a higher court, the next highest court. And if they shut it down, then he's got to go to the next one, until it ends up to the Supreme Court. So the good news is that this is going to be tied up for a while. Not a bad thing. Now, of course, I could go on and on about the hypocrisy of this ban and why Saudi Arabia isn't on it. I've already mentioned it earlier. But again, you guys already know. Why he didn't ban anyone like Saudi Arabia or Egypt is because he has business deals there. If you're on this list, ironically, and you don't want to be on this list, if you're in any country that he wants to ban, why don't you reach out and make some business dealings? That is the one way to get off this list. Buy your way. If that's not absolute corruption, I don't know what is. All right. All right, let's move on. Now, Ivanka Trump is planning to take on a more formal role in the White House, according to different outlets. So apparently, Ivanka Trump will now be an unpaid advisor to her father. So this is an official role, unpaid advisor. So this is what they wrote in the New York Times. The announcement on Wednesday amounts to the formal recognition of the value Mr. Trump places on the judgment and loyalty of both his daughter and his son-in-law. While relying on family members for advice is hardly unusual for a president, giving them a formal role has very few precedents. So, look, now we have Jared Kushner, son-in-law, and Ivanka Trump in the White House. They're serving as advisors. Kushner is a senior advisor to Trump. So now you're asking, wait a minute, isn't this And there are laws against this. How is this legal? Now back to the Times. When questions were raised about whether Mr. Kushner's appointment violated federal anti-nepotism laws, the Justice Department wrote a memo in January concluding that these rules did not apply to the White House. So they're admitting there that, yeah, this is nepotism. This would break nepotism laws. But good thing we've got Jeff Sessions in there to say, you know what? That's okay. We don't like those rules. So we're just gonna say that they don't apply. Isn't being in power fun? We can do whatever the hell we want and get away with it. And that's what they're doing. Yes, it is nepotism. But unfortunately for us, it is the legal kind. So now, again, this is apparently justified because she'll be unpaid. In fact, she released a statement. I'm going to read some of that. She said, I've heard the concerns that some might have with my advising the president in my personal capacity while voluntarily complying with all ethics rules. And I will instead serve as an unpaid employee in the White House, subject to all of the same rules as other federal employees. Now, let me stop there for a second. There's something interesting in that. Advising the president in my personal capacity while voluntarily complying with all ethics rules. They're ethics rules. Why should you have to voluntarily, comply? They're rules. They're supposed to be there for a reason. If you can voluntarily follow the rules, you can also voluntarily not follow the rules. That's a bit of a problem. I have an issue with that. Those ethics rules should not be voluntary. It's a very telling statement. Now, the Times continues, it was unclear Wednesday exactly what unpaid would mean for the first daughter. Donald Trump also initially said that he would not take a salary, but of course the White House later confirmed that he, yes, was collecting monthly paychecks. Of course. But he says, don't worry, I'm going to donate this money to charity. Right, just like the Trump Foundation. We all know how that turned out. Now, nonetheless, this new position formalizes a role of a 35-year-old former real estate executive has been playing for nearly a year, which is offering political advice to her father. So what kind of advice can she really give on political matters? I don't know. I mean, she's not a politician. She doesn't have any experience in politics. But I guess considering her father also doesn't have any experience in politics, doesn't really matter anymore. But this whole thing has raised some ethical concerns from possible conflicts of interest. And now for that, I go back to the Times. Questions about conflicts of interest related to those businesses have trailed Mrs. Trump since her father won the presidency. In December, the New York Times reported that she had joined her father's meeting with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan, even as her company was finalizing a deal with an apparel company whose largest shareholder happens to be a Japanese government-owned bank. Okay, so that could have some conflicts of interest. That certainly has the appearance of a conflict of interest. However, of course, the deal was later called off, probably due to that. So, to minimize her future conflicts of interest, the Times reported, Mrs. Trump had transferred her brand's assets into a trust overseen by her brother-in-law, Josh Kushner, and sister-in-law, Nicole Meyer, and she insisted the help of Miss Gorlick, a prominent Democrat who had served as Deputy Attorney General under President Bill Clinton. So, okay, so she's got other people managing her businesses. Okay, that's fine. Now, under the terms of the trust, Ms. Gorlick will review all new deals for Ms. Trump's brand and flag any potential conflicts of interest to Ms. Trump, who can exercise veto power or recuse herself from White House business. Ms. Trump had also previously separated her personal and business social media accounts and handed over day-to-day operations of her business to the brand's president, Abigail Clem. So, okay, so that, I guess that takes care of the conflicts of interest. To be fair on this, all right? Now, the big problem here, other than the obvious nepotism thing, is that her position doesn't seem to be defined. It's kind of nebulous, right? What is she doing there? What exactly will she be advising him on if it isn't business related? What other things does she bring to the table? Now, again, she's a very successful businesswoman, and so, you know, if you're to get her advice on business matters, well, that would make a little bit of sense because that's what she knows. But she doesn't know anything about political matters. She's not a politician. So what is she there to do? Well, I have an idea. I think this is part of Donald Trump making his inner circle just a little bit more private. basically bringing in his kids to advise him. Well, when you bring in other people, outsiders, to advise him, well, some of the people get left out of the decision-making process. He's trying to shut other people out. So what he's doing, in my opinion at least, is that he's creating this insular inner circle with Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, and other very, very close Trump allies, people who have been proven to be sufficiently loyal to him, as Donald Trump values, I believe, loyalty among all else, or above all else. That's what I think is happening here. He's bringing in the loyal people, and he's leaving everyone out of important decisions and important talks. So he's going to lock out everyone else. So again, this is one of the ways this is very, very problematic. So I don't like the fact that he's bringing in people, you know, his own family. So this is pure nepotism, plain and simple. And he's going to get away with it. He's going to get away with it. And that's incredibly frustrating. And unfortunately, that's what you get when you vote for someone like this. They're gonna break the rules flagrantly in your face, and without any sort of apology, without any sort of remorse. This is what they do, man. This is what they do. All right. So we got a couple more stories here. And we'll start out with, well, we got a very important story related to the new FCC rules that are being, well, the FCC rules that are being eliminated, the privacy rule. So let's get into that. Now, Republicans in Congress have recently passed a bill that would allow ISPs to sell your browsing history to advertisers. We reported on this. The news is reporting on this. Everybody's reporting on this. Now, what it essentially does, if you're not familiar, is that it undoes rules passed by the Obama administration that were set to go into effect this year. Now, these rules would have basically stopped ISPs from selling your data to advertisers so that the advertisers can hit you with ads. Now, these rules would have still allowed ISPs to sell customer browser data, but only if they got permission from the customer. Like, hey, your ISP says, hey, Bob, I want to sell your data to an advertiser. Is that cool? Well, what am I going to get from it? Well, you're not going to get anything, but I'm going to get some money, and they're going to shower you with ads. Well, Bob's going to be like, fuck you. I don't really want to be showered with ads. And I don't want you making money off my private data. So the outcry, of course, was, hey, let's put these rules into place that prevent that. Because before they were able to do that. So, of course, the rules would also have required ISPs to notify customers about how their browsing data was used. Now, Republicans, when they got into office, and Republican trade groups were like, get rid of them, dude. We hate these rules. We want to make a buck off you and your private data. We don't care if you want it or not. We don't care if you're annoyed by all the ads you're going to be showered with. We don't care. We want to make an extra dollar. Our donors are saying we want more money, and this is the way to do it. So let's get rid of this rule. So they're considered, so this whole thing was considered anti-business. Your privacy is considered anti-business. Rules protecting them. Great. So one of the arguments used against this rule, and you'll love this, is that regulators fail to, and the quote, in the words of Senator Ted Cruz, quote, they failed to address the strenuous objections from throughout the internet community raised during the rulemaking process. So basically, they failed to listen to the objections from the internet community. So to what comments from the internet community does he refer to? I mean, I consider myself an internet savvy guy. Yeah, I try to know what's going on. I try to get to know the community, right? I don't recall seeing the community saying, "Hey, go ahead and take my personal browsing data without my permission." Well, then I guess that would be your permission if you said that. But take my browsing data so you can sell me ads. Wait a minute. No, it generally seems to be the opposite. It turns out people like their privacy, and they hate ads. I know this. So what exactly are they talking about? What comments? Well, for that, I go to The Intercept, in a great article written by Li Fong. Now, the comments submitted to the FCC reveal that many of the opponents of the privacy regulation came not from any internet community, but from the groups with extensive financial ties to phone and cable companies, with some of their claims hinging on the absurd. Now, again, I'm going to read you some of these claims because this is ridiculous. Now, unfortunately, I do have to report that some of these industry-funded groups happen to also be civil rights groups. Civil rights groups. For example, the League of United Latin American Citizens and the OCA, Asian Pacific American Advocates, two self-described civil rights organizations, told the FCC that, quote, many consumers, especially households with limited incomes, poor families, appreciate receiving relevant advertising that is keyed to their interests and provides them with discounts on the products and services they use. So let me translate that into English. They think poor people want more ads in exchange for their privacy. That the poor people are okay with giving up their internet browsing privacy to these ISPs so that can sell them, so the ISPs can make a bunch of money to advertisers, so they end up getting showered with ads. That's what they think poor people want. Really? Really? That is both sad and ridiculous. Both the LULAC and the OCA receive funding from Comcast and other ISPs, so you would not be surprised that there is a money connection here. These civil rights groups are going out and saying, oh, man, poor people, they keep telling us that they want more ads. They want more ads, and they don't care about their privacy. Oh, look, I just got this money, this check from Comcast. What a coincidence. Turns out my donors also really want that. Who knew? Wow. Now, look, I'm pretty sure, like, I grew up poor, okay? As somebody who grew up poor, I'm pretty sure the first thing that I did not want was for my ISP to see my browsing data. And look, let me remind you, when I first got the internet, I was a young teenager, okay? So you know what that browsing history would likely look like, okay? Did I really want my ISP to know what I'm browsing and then sell it to an advertiser so that advertiser can then sell me ads based on what I'm looking at? No. And it'd be even more hilarious, by the way, because the computer that I was using when I was younger was a shared computer. So you could only imagine the ads that would get served to anybody using that computer in the household. Like your mom uses a computer and it's like, what the hell have you been looking at? Why do I keep getting these ads? I don't know, Mom. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. But fun aside, there's some serious issues here. And here's a good quote from Brandy Collins, campaign director for Color of Change. Now, she had a great explanation of why this was actually bad for poor families. The data that big corporations collect from black and brown families ends up leading to predatory marketing that starts from a young age and lasts for a lifetime. Everything from payday loans to junk food advertising. Now, let me stop there. Payday loans are a huge, huge problem, especially in poor America, especially in poor and urban areas. You can end up getting trapped into a cycle of debt nonstop from some of these payday loan companies. Well, I've dealt with payday loan companies, and they've had some very, very steep interest rates. Okay, and sometimes, if you're unlucky, you can get trapped into that. And then there are issues in urban areas with food deserts, right? Where you don't have basically grocery stores that sell actual healthy food. You just have places like snack foods, gas stations that sell very, very unhealthy things. So obesity and health issues seem to be a problem in these areas as well. And on top of that, now you'll get ads in these areas for people that have internet, getting ads for things like, oh, come do this payday loan so you can get trapped, or, you know, come and buy all these unhealthy snacks. Great. So that's can obviously be a huge impact on poor families. Now she continues, even the most innocuous information can be used for online price gouging. data discrimination, and digital redlining. Attempting to reframe the concept of privacy for our children in vulnerable communities as a luxury and not a basic right is at best misleading and at worst a true disservice to any community these organizations purportedly represent. Now, right now, shots fired. She is going after these civil rights groups for pushing this type of legislation. Now, you also have Malkia Cyril, who is the executive director for the Center of Media Justice. Now, she reportedly scoffed at the idea that people living in poverty would prefer ads over the Fourth Amendment constitutional protections in a digital age. She called the argument preposterous and actually kind of insulting. Quote, "No, I am quite certain people want to live safe from government or corporate overreach, to know their speech and activities are protected, more than they want to be sold products at a discount. Regardless of desire, that is what democracy demands, and anyone claiming concern for civil rights who asserts otherwise should take a very thoughtful look at why." Well, we know why. But first, this regulation, of course, as I need to point out, would let your, the regulation that they're trying to eliminate right now already lets the companies sell your data if you say it's okay. So all they have to do is to get your permission. Hey, we want to take a look at your browsing history and what you browse for and what you shop for, and then send you ads based on that. Is that cool? Is that okay? And if you say yes, absolutely, well, then there's no problem because there's consent here. The problem is that that's not good enough for them. And they know it's a very unpopular idea that people actually value their privacy online and what they shop for. So they have to go around that, and that's why they're trying to get rid of this. So what this is about is it's not about helping these poor communities. No, it's about corporate greed. And these civil rights groups are making excuses because they get money from these telecom companies. In fact, according to The Intercept, the OCA has long relied on telecom industry cash. Verizon and Comcast are listed as Business Advisory Council members to the OCA and provide funding along with corporate guidance to the organization. And last year, both companies sponsored the OCA annual gala. So the OCA, unfortunately, happens to be in the pockets of the telecom companies. You also have AT&T, Comcast, Time Warner, and Charter Communications, as well as Verizon, serving as part of the LULAC Corporate Alliance, providing, quote, advice and assistance to the group. Comcast gave $240,000 to the LULAC between 2004 and 2012. So that is a lot of money. Now, neither the OCA or the LULAC immediately responded when asked if ISP industry money influenced their decision to engage on this privacy rule, which, again, seems to be outside of their purview. What does this have to do with civil rights? What does this have to do with helping black and brown people or Asian people or Latinos? It doesn't have anything to do with it. It seems like it's only there to help corporate profits. But, of course, they didn't respond because they don't want to admit, yeah, we're doing what our big donors want us to do. To advocate for policy outside of our stated mission goals, and that, look, this policy happens to be super incredibly beneficial for our big donors. Look, the whole issue here is follow the money. You follow the money, as always. As The Intercept had reported earlier this year, other civil rights groups, pushed on by the Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council, which is an organization that backs the telecom lobby, together with the OCA, also had mobilized to support the Trump administration's push to roll back net neutrality. MMTC, surprise, surprise, is also funded by Comcast and other major ISP firms. So this isn't a new thing. Even when, the beginning of Trump's administration, when he started pushing against net neutrality and putting in Ajit Pai as the FCC director, you had these civil rights groups, and I remember reporting on this, that were pushing this. They were pushing to get rid of net neutrality rules. Oh, but it's going to help people in minority areas. It's part of our mission statement is to help people in poor minority areas. No. What you're doing, aside from the great work that you actually do for these groups or for these groups of people is you're helping corporations. You're helping these big telecom companies in return for getting all this money. And that's really the problem here. Now, the OCA, in addition to backing the telecom industry push against net neutrality, also lobbied regulators on behalf of Southwest Airlines after receiving financial support from the airline. But that's not part of the OCA's mission. How's helping Southwest got to do with anything with civil rights? It doesn't, but again, you have to follow the money. Now, other letters sent to the FCC in opposition to the privacy rule were also sent by ISP-funded advocacy groups. Groups like Grover Norquist's Americans for Tax Reform, who also wrote a letter to the FCC. Now, the Norquist letter attached a previous comment from allied right-leaning groups, including the Center for Individual Freedom, Americans for Prosperity, and American Commitment, claiming that the definition of private data is too highly subjective to be set by the FCC. Some might find value, quote, in an application using data about their geolocation in a particular way, this letter notes. Well, yeah, there's value here. The value is to the giant corporations. It's valuable to a company that wants to take your data and sell it. That's what this is. And so here you have all these very right-wing groups on the same side as these civil rights groups, all to defend giant corporations. That is the problem here. Americans for Tax Reform, the Center for Individual Freedom, Americans for Prosperity, American Commitment, of course, they all receive money from the giant ISPs. The National Cable and Telecommunications Association, this trade group, has provided financial support to the organizations on the letter. The NCTA also filed a letter with the FCC, forcefully calling for a repeal of the privacy rules. So why is this important? Why am I bringing this to you? Well, the article explains, for privacy and other civil rights advocates, the campaign to repeal the privacy rule could create new dangers for online activists. Watchdog groups note that ISPs can use consumer browsing data to compile detailed profiles of users' health, finances, political beliefs, and even their sexual orientation, which would also not be good for people who are minorities. And see, this is why the ISPs do not need to be doing this. They do not need to be collecting your data, and they certainly do not need to be selling it off to third parties or sharing it with the government. And if you think they haven't already started trying to collect your data, well, you're wrong. In 2014, Verizon began a program of tracking all mobile consumers' traffic using a system that was nearly impossible to opt out of. And other ISPs have experimented with programs that record every URL their customers happen to visit. So even way back then, even back in 2014, and probably earlier, these companies were looking for a way to monetize you, to look at your browsing history, to violate your privacy when you're online, to try and make a buck. That's what it's about. They cannot wait. And as you could see, they're throwing money everywhere. They're throwing it to civil rights groups. They're giving it all these right-wing lobbyist groups. All this money going to the politicians. Also, they can make an extra buck. And when you put that much money behind something, it means that they stand to make a huge return on investment off our privacy, off our personal data. And now, of course, Trump is expected to sign the repeal of these rules. So there it is. Watch out, man. Find a way to protect yourself online, to protect your personal privacy, because you can be damn sure that President Trump ain't going to do it, or the Republicans. All right. One more. It seems like there might be a deal now between Republicans and the Democratic governor of North Carolina to repeal the HB2 law, also known as the bathroom bill. Now, according to some of the local reporting, North Carolina's Republican-controlled legislature and its Democratic governor announced late Wednesday that they had reached an agreement to repeal the controversial state law that curbs legal protections for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people and sets rules that affect transgender bathroom use in public buildings. Now, that is, of course, the most controversial part of this bill. Now, the law in question, again, referred to as House Bill 2, or the bathroom bill, was signed in March 2016 by the state's governor, Pat McCrory. Now, interestingly enough, Pat McCrory seems to have a very hard time getting a job now that he's no longer governor. People seem to think that I'm a bigot. No, really? Sad. Bigot has it sad. Anyway, enough on him. Now, this bill ended up making North Carolina lose a shit ton of business, millions and millions of dollars. So they have been hit financially by this. And I think that's part of why the Republicans are like, okay, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Let's do something. Now, Phil Berger, Senate leader, and Tim Moore, all Republicans, announced late Wednesday that they had reached an agreement with the new Democratic Governor, Roy Cooper. Now, a bill repealing House Bill 2, which the legislature will consider on Thursday, which is today, would also create a moratorium on local non-discrimination ordinances through 2020 and leave regulation of multi-occupancy facilities or bathrooms to state lawmakers. So that provision right there, well, that's where a lot of LGBT groups are now taking issue with this. No, they're looking at this and saying, wait a minute, we want to get rid of HB 2, but you're basically making it so that we have no non-discrimination protections until 2020 at least? What the hell, man? That's not right. Now, again, they're very unhappy with this. Now, this entire fight started because Charlotte, North Carolina, tried passing some non-discrimination ordinances in the city. The state lawmakers looked at that and said, you can't do that. You can't pass laws that protect your people. No. We have to do a state law that says that we're not only going to not protect your people, we're actually going to go after trans people. And that's where HB 2 even came from. So now, again, cities wanted to actually protect the LGBT community, but this agreement, this compromise says, well, yeah, you can't do that anymore. So basically, they're setting it back to the status quo. On that, Mr. Berger and Mr. Moore said compromise requires give and take from both sides. And we are pleased that this proposal fully protects bathroom safety and privacy. Now, in a brief statement, Mr. Cooper said, quote, I support the House bill to repeal compromise that we introduced tomorrow, or today. It is not a perfect deal, but it repeals House Bill 2 and begins to repair our reputation. Not necessarily, because again, it goes back to the status quo. Now, gay rights advocates, very, very critical of this. Catherine Oakley, senior legislative counsel for the Human Rights Campaign, said that this compromise would essentially leave lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people with no statewide anti-discrimination ordinance and no ability to seek such protections from local government for a number of years. So, quote, what that means for the LGBT community is that we continue to be boxed out of non-discrimination protections. Chris Scrow, I believe, executive director of the gay rights group Equality North Carolina, said that the proposal keeps North Carolina as the only state in the country obsessed with where trans people use the bathroom through law. And I don't know why they're so goddamn obsessed with where people pee. It's got to be some sort of pathology or something. I don't know. Now my question is, why did they push so hard to try to block cities from passing their own protection ordinances if they want to? If a city wants to pass it, local government wants to pass it, well, it's called democracy. But they don't like democracy. These Republicans hate that. They don't believe in local government unless local government does hateful things. If they actually do positive things, state government, Big Brother's got to step in and go, oh, no, can't do that. We believe in top-down government. Hypocritical for Republicans. Now, this compromise, again, it sets it back to the status quo for what happened before. And before, no transgender or LGBT folks had any protections against discrimination. That's why Charlotte said, yes, we're going to protect that. But you wonder why the gay community is so pissed. And of course, the Republicans did this so they could get basketball back in their state. Let me explain. The the NCAA, almost said NAACP, getting my stuff around, warned the state that this week it could lose the opportunity to host a championship sporting events through 2022. The league had already relocated championship tournament games that would have been played in North Carolina during this academic year, including the Division I men's basketball tournament. Now, the possibility of further punishment placed tremendous political pressure on lawmakers in the basketball-obsessed state, a pressure exacerbated by the fact that the University of North Carolina men's basketball team had reached the NCAA. Well, the tournament's Final Four, and will be squaring off against the University of Oregon on Saturday. So, hey, tick-tock, dude. Tick-tock. You know, this would be a great time for the NCAA, who, look, I give a lot of credit here for looking at this and going, hey, you know what? This is a bad law. This is discriminatory. We're not going to, lock these people out. We're not going to make them feel like second-class citizens here. We're going to pull out until you fix this, okay? And that's one of the reasons, of course, North Carolina lost so much money. It was economically devastating for the NCAA and other groups and other businesses to pull out of the state. And, of course, that's the only, Republicans only understand one thing. Money. Money. Of course. Now, I think the NCAA could come out with a statement urging lawmakers to go a little further. I'll just allow them to pass some protections. These people are people. They're human beings. They're not predators. In fact, most of the time, they're preyed on. Over half of all transgender people are physically, sexually assaulted in restrooms. These are the people that need some protections. They're not the predator. They're the prey. And that's the problem here. And, they should go further and allow people, local municipalities to just do protections for LGBT folks if they want it. Look, the NCAA, you've literally got them by the basketballs. You can do this. You can push for this. Use your leverage. I mean, do you understand how much good PR you're going to get by doing this? Every gay guy will likely become a basketball fan. A North Carolina fan, even. I'm kidding, of course. But, look, it's the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do. This is, as far as this compromise goes, sending it back to the status quo is not great. Okay? It sets it back to before HB 2. No protections for the gay and trans community. And I don't agree with that. Maybe it's a good start, but you should go further. So let's move forward on this, because at the end of the day, trans rights and gay rights are human rights. Let's just all leave each other alone and let each other piss in peace. Okay. That's all I got for you guys today. All right. Now, thank you for tuning in, going around the nation with me today. Hopefully you liked the show. We'll be back tomorrow for a nice Friday show. So we'll take some calls tomorrow for sure. So make sure to tune in there. Thank you to everybody watching. Thank you to everybody who shared, liked the stream. Thank you to the patrons, of course, as always, patreon.com/TYTNation. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Twitter, TYTNation, my personal account, Jeff's Politics, and on Facebook. All right. So, everybody, thank you so much. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.